All right, it is the Patio Periscope as a Thursday night edition of your program. We are brought to you by mybookie.ag. Get in and play today. Get in with MyBookie today. And of course, use the promo code PATIO. MyBookie, 100% bet back bonus, $25 casino credit, all the things you need. If you're a first time player, you can do it with MyBookie. Of course, hey, if you want to bet on football this year and score a $25 casino credit, claim your 100% bet back bonus on your first deposit. If your bet hits, you win. If you miss, well, you'll earn a 100% refund up to $500 in free play after claiming and depositing your must opt in on this promotion and the bet slip and select claim on the pop ups. The casino chips, that's yours instantly. Go to mybookie.ag today. Get in, use the promo code PATIO. Absolutely PATIO as you get in today. All right, we got a great show coming for you on a Thursday night. I want you to make sure that you're following me on X at Jake Wim. And then, of course, you can also get me on Facebook. Just find Jake Wimberly. And then also make sure that you are checking out our YouTube channel. Glad to be with you here on the Patio Periscope. Last night was fun talking high school football in the state of Mississippi. Also, my college football national championship picks and talking quarterbacks around the country. We'll have Dave Myrick in. He covers Oklahoma here in just a bit. As want to make sure we're streaming up and live on everything. And let's see, it looks like that we are. So we're glad to be here tonight. Let me cut this down to make sure we can see the chat over here. Make sure to put the chat if you got questions. Dave Myrick will join us here momentarily. Also, Rafael Esparza, mybookie.ag. Glad to have the podcast back up and running it parallel with the afternoon show. We had a great show at Brandon High School today. We'll be out at Rebel Hardware tomorrow, 3 to 6. We're going to get going. We're going to bring in Dave Myrick. And, of course, Dave is in the great state of Oklahoma. Let's make sure we can hear Dave on the podcast tonight. Dave, are you with us?
I'm right here, Jake. Doing all right tonight?
Man, we're doing good. I don't see you, but we don't have to see you. I don't know if your camera's off or on, but we do have your audio.
Yeah, I've got the camera on, but, yeah, I don't see myself either. I can try a few things until we get going. But, yeah, good to be with you, man. First time being on your podcast. It looks first class as I would have expected.
Man, I appreciate that as always. And, Dave has joined us on the afternoon drive several times. I wanted to bring Dave on. He's very good at college football. Dave, for those that haven't seen you or heard you, tell them obviously what you do. I know you're a big play-by-play guy in the state of Oklahoma. And we got more time to chat and wrap here because we're not, bound by the confines of terrestrial radio commercials and segments.
Yeah, no question. It's kind of nice to get that onus off your shoulders for a little bit doing live radio, not up against it, so to speak, Jake. But, yeah, I work for 107.7 The Franchise, flagship station of Oklahoma athletics here in the state of Oklahoma. Cover OU football, basketball, baseball. Was up in Omaha for the College World Series. That turned out to be quite an event for Oklahoma. And also do call high school football in the state, Carl Albert, Middell teams, and a couple of D2 college football teams here in the state. So about to get very busy this time of year is one of my favorites.
All right, Dave, let's talk some SEC football tonight. We're going to go around the league. We've got, 30 minutes to do so. If you've got 30, I've got Rafael Esparza jumping in to talk some sports gaming at 8:30. So let's get right to it. Oklahoma, Texas, we'll start there first. In the SEC, third year that the two teams are in the league. And, I think it's been a great addition to the league. I think both teams are going to be players in the SEC. We'll start with your ground zero, Oklahoma Sooners. I've told you this on my radio show. I love Oklahoma. I love John Mateer. I want to see, what's next for him. Brent Venables, this defense. I think if there is a quote sleeper to win the SEC, I think it's Oklahoma.
Jake, you're not alone with that. I mean, you kind of get laser focused here being solely on Oklahoma. You talk about Oklahoma and you really focus on the negatives. You focus on injuries in training camp. You focus on little things that have happened or haven't happened the last couple of years. But you step outside the spectrum of Oklahoma media, and there are a lot of people nationally that really like this Oklahoma football team. I'm kind of torn because I've seen Brent Venables be really good, and I've seen him be really bad. He's kind of got still something to prove, I think, to the OU fan base. He started off 6-7, 10-3, 6-7, 10-3. So this year, it's kind of like the proof is going to be in the pudding and what Brent Venables and this Oklahoma team is going to be. But they should be, on paper at least, really, really good. John Mateer back for the second year. Ben Arbuckle, his OC, that's going to travel together now for their third year in a row. So that's really good continuity. But the offensive line, Jake, that's where it starts and stops on offense. They've not had a good one in Norman really the last 3 years. Unbelievably, they made the playoffs. Outside of that, regardless, last year, that's how good that defense was. But this year, that offensive line is actually some guys that have talent. They've got experience, and they've got a frontline depth with four guys behind them. They can roll 8, 9 deep and feel pretty good. It's actually deeper than the defensive line. So with the Brent Venables team, that's a mouthful to say. But those guys up front are big, they're mean, they're nasty, and that's a Bill Beatonbow coach unit that I think can take them a long way.
I was looking at, of course, this, and I've been talking about this for the last several weeks. If you go around college football, regardless who you go to, you could go to On Three Sports, go to Chris Lowe, you can go to JD Piquel, you can go to your team, you can go out to Texas. Everybody's going to have a different national champion, or at least a mixture of 8 or 9 teams. I'm sitting here looking at Chris Lowe, and I'm going to share this. I know our listeners and watchers will be able to see it. I don't know if you can see it, but looking at Chris Lowe's, I'm going to throw it up on the screen real quick. Chris Lowe's college football playoff bracket. He's got Oklahoma as a 10 seed taking on Indiana. He's got Ohio State and Georgia in the national championship, with Ohio State winning. And Dave, when you look around, I mean, Oklahoma's making a lot of these playoff lists, somewhere around a 7, 8, 9, 10 seed. I do think it'd be interesting to see Texas and Oklahoma in this matchup. Indiana's got winning. But to see a Texas Oklahoma playoff game. But when you look around the college football circuit, a lot of people got Oklahoma in the playoff, and a lot of people have a mixture of teams to win this championship this year.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Lowe is a guy that I respect in the industry and usually check what he puts out. And that's, Ohio State, Georgia, not really out on a limb for a national championship matchup, but I get why you do that. But Oklahoma, they're sneaking around that henhouse of the top 10 teams people want to talk about. And look, I hate to just come out and say I think they're going to be good, because I'm usually very objective when it comes to Oklahoma. I've been very hard on Brent Venables in years past, and rightfully so. But look, I do think they're going to be good. They've got frontline guys across both lines of scrimmages. David Stone up front on defense, Jaden Jackson, both All-Americans. In fact, you will not find a better defensive interior in all of college football. That's going to be their anchors. That they've got a superstar on the back end in Peyton Bowen. They've got one at linebacker in Kip Lewis. So I have tried to find fault with this roster top to bottom. I can't. I think they're very good. They're fast. They're deep. And they're physical. That's a Brent Venables staple. So I'm not surprised to see guys like Chris or anybody nationally that have Oklahoma up there. It's going to come down to John Mateer in that offense. It's just there's a lot of pressure on Ben Arbuckle. They weren't good last year, Jake. I mean, the fact they made the playoffs, I think a lot of people kind of brush that, under the rug, like, oh, they must not have been that bad. No, they were that bad. They were putrid. They were pathetic. At times, a hindrance to the team that would not get out of their way. The defense is why they made it, and they had a kicker, Tate Sandell, banging 55-yard field goals wearing Daisy Dukes. But they've got to get better. That's going to help the D this year, and it's going to be hard to be worse. They were like 104th in total offense last year. Just be in that 40 to 30 range. Be mid-pack SEC, and with this defense, they can be one of the best complete teams in college football.
Dave, let's shift to Texas. I've got Texas winning the national championship, beating Oregon. I was talking with a client today, and he's a big Ole Miss guy, and he said, "Oh my God!" He said, "Go out on a limb with Texas," and he eye rolled. A lot of people are going to eye roll Texas until Texas does it. But I mean, when you look at Texas, I mean, I think they have the pedigree. We'll see if Arch Manning can live up to the hype. They've got two really big wide receivers in off the transfer portal. Hollywood Smothers at running back. Steve Sarkisian's been very vocal about this team this offseason. I'm not saying I like them to win it. But, I mean, if they didn't win it, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, Texas is disappointed, somewhat annually, nationally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the entire hindrance people have talking about Texas, right? They've always got the talent. They've always got that pedigree. They've always got blue-chip players playing for them. They've got them again this year. And, look, Steve Sarkisian's been really good. He's owned Brent Venables. He's been very good in this portion of the Red River Shootout against Oklahoma, and he's made the playoffs. But for whatever reason – that's not good enough for Texas fans. Nationally, people are kind of waiting for them to take that next step. They haven't yet, so I get the hesitation. But, Jake, I'm with you. I think they're going to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in college football this year. You go top to bottom, Colin Simmons on defense, Raheem Biles, Hollywood Smothers at running back, an OU transfer. I know they hated to see him leave. Arch Manning back, Cam Coleman at wide receiver. They got dudes all across the board. They've always been very basic. Pete Kwiatkowski on defense. Kind of lined up how he lined up, and he'd come after you. I think with Will Muschamp, they're going to be a lot more diverse. They're going to scheme a lot more, and that's going to put more on an offense and an offensive line to game plan for them. So I do expect Texas to be really good. OU fans, of course, won't like hearing that, but I do think they're 2 of the best teams, not only in the SEC, but in college football.
We're visiting with Dave Myrick. He is in the state of Oklahoma if you're just joining us. And of course, he does a great job, play by play guy, also radio host, covers Oklahoma and the SEC. Of course, it is Thursday, brought to you by MyBookie. Use the promo code PATIO. Get in and play today. All right, so let's step into the state of Mississippi. I want to I always like to get perspectives on eyes into this state from outside of this state. Two interesting storylines in the state of Mississippi. And I've said this before, I've been here my entire life. I've never seen a greater divide than what we see right now between Mississippi State and Ole Miss. Ole Miss, obviously, a whisker away from playing for a national championship against Indiana last year. Mississippi State, I saw a stat the other day that was really shocking to me. That Mississippi State, since 2022, has not beaten an SEC opponent not named Arkansas since they beat Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl in 2022. So Jeff Levy's got his work cut out for him. I know he loves his quarterback, Kamario Taylor. Flip side of that, Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss, also Kewan Lacey. They're trying to get back to the college football playoff with Pete Golding. Just your thoughts as you unpack a little bit of Mississippi State and Ole Miss.
Yeah, of course, I know Jeff Levy well from his time in Norman. I thought he ran a great offense. He and Dylan Gabriel accomplished some special things. You kind of see that Art Briles spread him across 53 and a half with the spread rushing game thrown in, a lot of vertical routes. They like to attack you. So I'm a big fan of Jeff. I always have been. He had a top 5 offense here. I love his concepts, and I think they can work at Mississippi State if he's given time. Jake, it just takes time to build. People get impatient, especially nowadays. But Kamario Taylor, look, I lay dual threat guy. He can beat you with his legs. He's got a great arm. Fluff Bothwell, running back, a juke guy. He can make you miss and go 70 in the blink of an eye. So I think Jeff's got some toys to work with. The divide is just what you talked about. Ole Miss, you've got the swag with Lane Kiffin back when he was there, and that got donors on board, which gets money on board. And that you blink and you built a roster, with a lot of checks. And Mississippi State is just not to that level yet. I think that they need to outperform expectations, outperform their talent 1 year with Jeff to kind of get that backing. And I think they'll be where they want to be because he's a really good coach, in my opinion. But Ole Miss just has a step up right now. They got a leg up in that state. And Trinidad Chambliss, I go back to UCO, University of Central Oklahoma, actually played for it wasn't a national championship. They played for a semifinal berth, and it had to go against Trinidad Chambliss in D2, and he absolutely lit them up. And, of course, saw him in Norman last year, so I'm very familiar with him. Great quarterback. I wish Oklahoma didn't have to play him again, for their sake. But he's going to be really good, really lethal in the SEC. Pete Golding, that's intriguing to me to see how he can do as a head coach. But he should have all the tools he needs to have a really successful season.
Where are we on Alabama? Where are you on Alabama? We're visiting with Dave Myrick talking SEC football tonight here on Thursday night. Alabama, one of the worst odds to win the national championship we've seen in 20 years. Preseason, the AP poll will be out this weekend or Monday. I think it's somewhere Sunday or Monday. They're going to be ranked somewhere, depending on 10 to 20, probably not as low as 20. They didn't run the football well last year. Very uncharacteristic of Alabama. I mean, I think when you look at their quarterback situation, it'll be good this year. They'll be able to throw the football. Kalen DeBoer is a good football coach. But where are we with that? Where are you on Alabama?
Weird, Jake. It's weird to see the Crimson Tide outside the top 10. It's weird to not see them, in every single playoff bracket. But Kalen DeBoer, he's proven he can win. He can win a bunch of football games. Can he win at the level it takes to win this conference and win a national championship? I don't know. I don't know if you can get there and win it without running the football. That was staggering to me to watch Alabama last year. The Crimson Tide not be able to pick up 3 yards per rush. I mean, that just it doesn't go with what we watched. So if you want to be one-dimensional in the SEC, I guess if you've got the wideouts, the weapons, and the quarterback, you have at it. But I don't see them. I don't see them getting to where that fan base really wants to go. I was really surprised they decided to extend DeBoer and lock him up after last season. I guess if you make the playoffs, it's kind of weird to sit here and talk about a coach like that it's strange to lock him up after they make the playoffs. But I don't see that much of a winning formula in this league and nationally with Alabama. He might fool me, but to be honest, I'm not really in on that experiment in Tuscaloosa. I just think they've got to get back to basics. Alabama football, being able to run it, move people off the line of scrimmage, and then you've got your play action pass. But look, he's got his philosophy. He knows what he likes to do, so we'll see what happens.
Let's go back over just a little bit west in the league. A team, obviously, and you're familiar with all these, but an old friend of yours, Texas A&M. Boy, they have been close the last couple of years. And when you look at Marcel Reed, I think he may be the key or not to this team, and it's going to be a very deep quarterback league. We've talked about that before, but where are we on Texas A&M? How close are they or not?
Oh, that's a good question and an impossible one to answer because it's A&M. How many
Yeah.
times have they been close? You think, and just for whatever reason, can't get over the hump. I really like Marcel Reed at points last year. He looked like a Heisman Trophy winner, and they looked like a national champion. And then at times you watch them and you don't really recognize the team. So I don't know really where they're at. I think they've got the makeup a lot like the teams we're talking about that the possibility is there. The high hopes are there. They're not really a team that I can be in on until I see them do it, if that makes sense. It's kind of like Texas. I hear about it every year. I hear the cupboard isn't bare, and then they've got the blue chips and this and that, but I've got to see it happen. If it did, it wouldn't surprise me. Marcus Ratcliffe, I love. That's a veteran guy that can do a lot at safety, and we've got that on the back end. You're gonna have a good defense. Santos Sock. I mean, Brandon Arrington, another cornerback. I mean, they've got the guys when you go up and down that roster, Jake. It's just I've got to see them actually get over the hump, and I saw it a lot in the Big 12. I mean, they had really good teams, and whatever reason, when it came down to it, couldn't do it. So the Aggie choke factor, it's a thing, and I'm going to have to see them get past it.
All right, are we buying or selling Lane Kiffin in year one? Or look, you know this, everybody knows this. He's on a short leash. They put a lot of money into that program. They've still got buyout money going into Brian Kelly and that staff. They got money into Will Wade in basketball. They got a lot of cash out the door. Of course, the Jaden Daniels thing, I know you probably saw that today. That was very, very weird.
Yeah.
Asking for the number 5 back, asking for his Heisman Trophy back. But outside of that, where are we on Lane Kiffin? Where are you? Are you buying or selling this year?
I'm selling. I've never liked Lane Kiffin. I had nothing personal. I think the guy's hilarious on social media, but he's never played for a conference championship. I've never seen a more overrated coach. Everything that's ever come open, big job wise, I always hear the guy's name, and it befuddles me as to why. He's never won big at the highest level. I guess he's flashy and people like what he says on Twitter, but I'm selling for the reason that it's too much of a circus, too much of a sideshow. What LSU has become, I didn't see that coming because they take their football very serious down in Baton Rouge. But there's just too many distractions with this guy, Jake, to really take them. I love Sam Levitt. I think he's a solid quarterback that can win football games. Talent does win. It's about Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's, and they've got that. So you got a good quarterback in college, you can win games. But I'm just not a Lane Kiffin guy. I think there's way too much noise that comes with him in the locker room.
We're visiting with Dave Myrick talking college football out of the great state of Oklahoma. Make sure to give him a follow. We'll tell you where on X and how to get his stuff. Always good stuff there. As Dave kind enough to join us tonight for an extended period to talk SEC football. All right, so let's go Auburn right now. This is such a unique situation in my lifetime. Again, I don't think I've ever seen Auburn on a run in the Southeastern Conference that are such a pedestrian type run for Auburn. 2 years under Brian Harsin. The last year Gus Malzahn. I think if they could go back, they probably would have kept him. I mean, I think if I go back and remember this correctly, one of the only coaches, if not the only coach in the last 60 years that did not have a losing season at Auburn. We're talking about Gus Malzahn, but the Brian Harsin experiment failed. The Hugh Freeze experiment failed. Alex Golesh has won at a pretty high level. He brings over, half a team of South Florida players. I think in Byron Brown, he's got a quarterback that's going to be one of the better ones in the league. Can they move the needle this year?
Yeah, I think they can. Due to what you just said, I loved Byron Brown when he was with Golich at USF. Watched him last year, and I thought before anything about Auburn ever came out, that is a stud that I think any team would be glad to have. And I'm a fan of Golich. I think that that's a hire that they kind of sat around and talked about what you just brought up, where they're at, where they're not, and they're not happy about it, and said, let's go out and get this guy and get it fixed. I think he does because he brought the right quarterback to play with. I mean, Jared Smith, very good edge, sophomore out there, and then Malik Autry, on the inside. That's you shore up your defensive front. That can do a lot in the SEC. So you got your quarterback, you got your defensive line, you got a coach that has a philosophy and how he likes to win football games and has traveled at the highest level. So I do think Alex Golich. I hate to say this because Auburn last year, after Oklahoma got him with that trick play, I've never seen a team whine and cry. It was, to the level of cringe, like just be quiet and let it go. But That got on everybody's nerves in Oklahoma. So I hate to say this, but I do think Golich and Auburn will be pretty good this year. I mean, maybe not fighting for an SEC championship, but I do think he'll lay the groundwork to start competing and beating Alabama as long as they have Kalen DeBoer.
Florida. I saw today, and you may have seen it too. And I was talking to some friends that were on location with us today for a remote. Is Florida put out an infographic that they're going to be wearing all blue for the first time ever? And I thought, man, I am losing my mind. I guess I know they've wore all blue, but it was the all blue with the orange helmets. They're going blue tops, blue bottoms, blue helmets. It is a pretty cool look. But John Summerall, what can he do that Dan Mullen and Billy Napier and others couldn't do before him?
Oh, I like Summerall. Going back to his days at Tulane, he too came to Norman, Oklahoma, and put up a hell of a fight against Lincoln Riley and a Kyler Murray team that had one of the best offenses we've seen in quite a while in college football. How'd they do it? They're tough. They're hard nosed, and I think that's something that Florida. I mean, I've talked a lot about teams that usually the cupboard isn't bare. They've got talent. They've always got blue chips. I mean, that state is as fertile as it gets, trying to recruit, and Florida brings in their share of talent. I think Summerall is a great mix with that. He's a no nonsense guy. He's about physicality. He's not about excuses. He's not a guy that you can go in his office and ask, for more money if you haven't proven it on the field. I think that's something Florida needs, just a no nonsense approach, hard nosed head coach. And that's what Summerall is. And his Tulane teams really, they weren't flashy. I mean, they ended up beating USC and Lincoln Riley in the Cotton Bowl a couple of years later, which was fun to watch. And he did it with that kind of philosophy, man. He's not going to blow your socks off. I mean, I don't think Florida fans are going to be, sitting in the bar after the game talking about 600 yards of offense and 450 yards passing. But I do think they'll stack wins. And I think that one, looking on Oklahoma's schedule, just to jump back to OU, that's going to be a very, very tough game down in Gainesville in the swamp, and that sets up at a very tough portion of Oklahoma's back half of the schedule. So I do think Summerall will get that rolling in Gainesville pretty quick, and I love the players he has to work with.
Georgia, we haven't spoke on. I mean, it's no disrespect to Georgia, but Georgia's Georgia. I mean, they won 2 national championships back to back a couple years ago, or several, 3 or 4 years ago now, 21, 22. They return, Gunnar Stockton, who I think is an absolute dog at quarterback. He's just a competitor. We'll see what he does at quarterback, what the receiver room looks like. But I think Georgia could be, back to that ground and pound type deal. I know they're talking about the receivers. They do have a receiver, supposedly. They're going to have good tight end play. Their schedule's pretty manageable. What do you think, or what do you like or not about Georgia?
Well, I mean, looking at them, it's tough, to dislike much. That they've got a lot of talent. Nate Frazier, expected to be the guy there in the backfield. Every down running back in the SEC. You got a proven quarterback with Gunnar Stockton, accurate with the football. I mean, that to me, really, in the NFL and this league, because it's so comparable to the NFL as far as athletes that you're going up against. Just be accurate with the football. Gunnar Stockton is a long line of Georgia quarterbacks that you look at and you're like, this guy should be selling insurance, on the corner. Not a college quarterback that's really good. Right. But they just seem to keep pumping them out, Jake, and they win and they're accurate with the football. So I think Kirby Smart and this team is going to be really good yet again. I'm with you. I think they get back. He's been one, though, he and Mike Bobo, that's never abandoned that. You've got to be physical in the trenches. You've got to run the football. Looking around the SEC the last couple of years, I think it's starting to spread where people just want to get in that 4 and 5 wide and toss the ball around the yard. And I think some things are being lost by doing that. Georgia is one that always stays true to their roots, and I think they'll do it again this year with Nate Frazier. You mentioned the tight end. Going to be really good, Riddell. So, I mean, they've got weapons on that play-action pass, but I look for Frazier just behind a really big and a really good offensive line, off tackle right, off tackle left, and you got to deal with Stockton to Riddell over the middle. So I think they're in defense with Kirby Smart and Georgia, never a question. So I do think they're going to be really good. And, yeah, I keep saying Texas, Georgia, probably the top 2 teams in the SEC. Then you got a little bit of a gap, that you'd start talking Oklahoma. So I think Georgia's right up there with anybody else.
All right, I'm going to ask you about a team, South Carolina, that, a lot of the media over the last 10 years has put as their, quote, sleeper team. A lot of people like Shane Beamer. I don't have a problem with Shane Beamer. I think Lenore Sellers is a really good quarterback. I know he's listed high on a lot of the pre-2027 quarterback draft boards. He's got the size. He's got the speed. Last year, their offensive line was very lethargic. Are you in the sleeper camp for South Carolina or kind of miss me with that?
Oh, and it pains me to say it because I love Shane. He's another guy that was on staff here in Norman, Oklahoma,
Yep.
a special teams coach, and a lot of great memories there. Man, I'm out on South Carolina. Lenore Sellers is really good. I love Nick Harbor, their wide receiver, when he's healthy. Uh, Dylan Stewart out there on the edge is good when he's healthy. He's good, but it's just been one thing or another with Coach Beamer. Last year, and I always reference Oklahoma because that's typically when I watch these teams the closest. OU sacked Lenore Sellers like 8 times. I mean, the guy was running for his life. He couldn't take a 3-step drop and hit his back foot without being hit. And I've got a tough time believing they shored that up in one offseason that they may have. But until Shane, and I know I've got South Carolina friends, beat guys that have a pretty good pulse, the Gamecock Nation. And it's going to be a tough year, I think, for South Carolina. They might surprise me, but I would not be surprised if this is Coach Beamer's final year out there with Gamecocks.
Let's grab a couple more with David Myrick talking SEC football. Tennessee is a team that made the college football playoff 2 years ago. They looked very lethargic against Ohio State. And, of course, Ohio State, kind of bull rushed everybody on their way to the national championship. Josh Heupel, I still think, is one of the better offensive minds in the country. They're going to have to be young at quarterback. I know they've got some pieces on that team. They spent a lot of money. Is it going to pay off this year?
Yeah, Josh Heupel, another OU guy. It's just, I mean, Josh Heupel, I'm with you. I think he's one of the best offensive minds in the SEC, if not the country. Can it work in Rocky Top? Yes, I think it can. He's got to have the right quarterback. That, to me, I mean, Faison Brandon, George McIntyre. Who's going to come out of camp and be the guy? Josh Heupel's always been really good with quarterbacks. If he has the right one, he can win. If not, he typically does not. So I'm going to buy Tennessee this year. I think just enough time. He's had enough time to build that roster the way he wants it, and he's going to pick a quarterback coming up any day now to name the starter, and whoever he picks, he's seen enough of in camp to like. So I think Josh Heupel in Tennessee will have a good season this year. When he got hired, I told a lot of their faithful this guy can coach. He was an OC under Bob Stoops at Oklahoma. So I'm in on Josh Heupel and the Tennessee Volunteers this year. What that means, I don't know. Beat Alabama the third Saturday in October. Be a good start. I know their fans are killing for that. Vanderbilt, they'll probably handle okay. Kentucky. But beat Alabama, and that fan base will be happy.
Before we let you go, and I appreciate your time today, who do you have playing in the SEC championship game? And then just for fun, how many SEC teams make the playoffs this year?
Well, to answer your question, and I'm going to feel like such a homer for this, and I never do it, Jake, but look, I'm in on Oklahoma. And I really don't want to be. Again, I've tried to find fault in everything they do in this roster, but returning quarterbacks mean a lot to me, and I'm a big John Mateer guy. I think with a healthy hand, he can do a lot. So I got Oklahoma coming in there, and then the Georgia Bulldogs. It's too easy. I think they're the best team in the league, and I think Oklahoma's going to fight tooth and nail to finish second to get to go play them. But that does leave out an interesting team. Your national champions, the Texas Longhorns. I see them stumbling one game they're not supposed to. Because why? It always happens with Texas. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Those are my two, and I'm going to say anywhere from 5 to 7 SEC teams make the playoff this year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the College Football Playoff Committee handles a couple 9-3 teams,
right?
Because they've still not given an answer on strength of schedule, nor do I think they ever will. I think a 9-3 team or two will probably get left out. I think that'll be an interesting conversation that we'll see kind of unfold in front of our eyes.
I mean, the strength of schedule, that's an interesting. It's very arbitrary are the rules, it seems, year to year on who gets in and who doesn't. I think there does need to be guidelines that each team can lay out preseason that they kind of know what they need to aim for, right? I'll reference college baseball. RPI is always something at the end of the year. Those 64 teams know you better have a good one. You're going to be left out. There's really no baseline like that in college football. So until they do, I mean, and I hate the fact the answer is going to be just keep adding teams to it. Eventually you get to a point regular season games don't matter. And I would absolutely hate that for college football. I think it's torn down enough of what made it great. So have some guidelines for teams to aim at and why they would qualify to make the playoffs would be a good place to start. But I'm with you. I think some 9-3 teams will be left out, but the SEC is the toughest league there is in the country, and then that will speak to people. So we'll see.
Dave, before we let you go, tell everybody where they can find you on social media and, of course, all the great work you guys are doing.
Yeah, appreciate that, Jake. At Danny underscore Big Mac 13. That's on Twitter, or X, I guess, as we call it. Also, play-by-play guy for SNU here in Oklahoma, Division II college, and play-by-play guy for the Carl Albert Titans, defending 5A champs here in Oklahoma. And catch me on 107.7 The Franchise, talking all things Oklahoma and all things athletic anytime. Jake, always a pleasure to be on with you, my friend.
Dave, a pleasure as always, brother. Look, we'll catch up and do it again. Great insight. And look, be blessed, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right, Jake, have a good night, man.
All right. Thanks so much. Dave Myrick on the show on the patio Harroscope tonight as we continue to move on. Great SEC preview there for Dave. And of course, we're going to jump in here and grab Rafael Esparza, mybookie.ag here in just a bit. We are brought to you by our friends at MyBookie. Make sure that you're using the promo code Harroscope, or excuse me, Patio. Use the one Patio. Don't use that one. Use Patio to jump in. We're going to talk a little odds for the national championship, maybe a little NFL and more as we bring Rafael Esparza in right now. We'll change my screen, make sure we bring him in. Rafael Esparza, mybookie.ag. My man, 2 times in one day. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. Are you actually outside on a patio?
I'm actually on a patio. I mean, when I started years ago, before I ever, hit the quote terrestrial radio airwaves, I started podcasting and I was in another property underneath a garbage patio. And that's back when you'll probably remember this. Periscope was a thing for Twitter. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we called it the Harroscope instead of the Periscope. So yeah, I'm actually on the patio out here in blistering 90-degree heat in Mississippi.
Just gonna say it's hot. That's why that's what I was gonna ask. What are you doing outside? Go into the air. There's air conditioning.
Well, it wouldn't be a patio show if we wouldn't run a patio. Now, I will say this: when it gets cold, we'll take it inside.
Okay. Or a thunderstorm. Or wait, you're in Mississippi or a tornado.
Yes. If it's bad weather, we're definitely moving inside. All right, so let's talk a little national championship college football. Some of the odds that are out there. Of course, you can play it all at MyBookie. Use the promo code Patio. We talked about this on air today. I think it's a wide open field. When you start talking about Georgia and Texas from the SEC, Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, Notre Dame. Man, it's a wide open field, and I feel like the champion very well could be lying again in the Big Ten, and SEC fans don't want to hear that.
No, and Big Ten fans don't want to hear this. My sister and her husband don't want to hear this, but I think we can exclude Indiana. And I was wrong with them all last year, and I'm probably going to eat crow against saying this, but that football team last year is actually starting to remind me of the Joe Burrow LSU team. I mean, they were just dominating and stuff like that, and then they weren't even close to winning the national championship the year afterwards. So I'm not saying Indiana's going to be a 3-win team and stuff like that, or if they make it to the playoffs, yes. But I mean, that was such a magical team, and you know this in college football. It's really, really hard to have back-to-back magical seasons.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think that's what Indiana had last year. So yeah, they're going to be a good team. I still have some question marks on the quarterback on how he's going to do with this new system. But I think there's other teams in the Big Ten that I think are better than Indiana.
Yeah, I really like Ohio State, and I really like Oregon. And I've got Texas beating Oregon, and I was telling Dave Myrick, who was on before you, I was with a client today, big Ole Miss guy, and he said, "Who you got winning the national title?" I said, "Texas beating Oregon." And he eye rolled, and he said, "Oh yeah, of course Texas." Everybody, he said, "Make a pick." Not, and I get what he's saying. Nobody's buying Texas unless you're a Texas fan until Texas does it. But look, that week one game against Ohio State, and we'll talk about that as we get into game week. We'll have Raphael on with us weekly on this show. I just put you in, penciled you in for that. And we'll talk those lines. But that Ohio State Texas week one, boy, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's why I'm not high. I shouldn't say I'm not high on Texas. I am high on Texas, but that schedule is brutal, and that's why I don't have Texas in the national championship. They're going to make the playoffs, yes. Are they going to have a nice season? Yes. But I just don't see them going that way just because of what their schedule looks like. And you just said their first game. What if they have an L in their first game? Don't forget, even though these kids are getting paid, they're still kids, and their mentality of what's going to happen if they taste defeat in their first game of the season. So I got Oregon winning it, and I think Oregon beats Georgia in the national championship.
Oregon is a great pick. I love the Oregon Ducks, and I love what Dan Lanning's done. And I know a lot of people look at last year and the way Indiana really just ended that game in 7 minutes. And then you look like 2 years ago, I had Oregon winning the national title. We were in Destin, my wife and I and some friends, and I was fired up to see Oregon play Ohio State until I got halfway through a thing of chicken wings, and that game was over. Ohio State just dismantled them. But I think it's Dan Lanning's had some bad draws in the playoffs, and that's not an excuse. I really like Dante Moore. We'll see where he goes in the NFL draft next year, but I do like this Oregon team.
And I like the speed on their defense this year. I mean, I think we're going to hear a lot about defense from different teams. I think Georgia's defense is going to be much better than we saw last year. I think Texas Tech's defense is going to be a difference. So we're going to hear about defense from other teams, but we're not going to hear it from speed and what Oregon will have. I think that's why I kind of like them going upwards in the conference. I know everyone wants to talk about Penn State as well, but I just don't see Penn State beating those teams as we've been talking, like the Georgias, the Oregon States, the Ohio States. Penn State, yes, their schedule is. I mean, you could probably win some of those games on their schedule, but I just think they're not one of those elite teams. I think that's going to be in the playoffs.
Let me ask you about the money in Texas, and I'm talking about the money in the state of Texas that's being pumped into there. We know what Texas is spending in the transfer portal. We know in NIL and pay for play. We know what Texas A&M is spending. SMU is spending like crazy, and it's showing in the ACC. Texas Tech in the Big 12, TCU, Houston. Houston was the quietest 10-win team in the country last year. Man, there is, and Baylor has not made that jump. At least it doesn't look like yet. But man, Texas, the whole state is spending a lot of money.
And it's different that we're not hearing about it, because the last time I checked, most of those teams you mentioned are not in the SEC. So that's why we're not hearing about the money that some of these teams are spending. We're hearing about, yes, everybody in the SEC. We're hearing about what Ohio State's spending, Michigan, but we're not hearing what the other teams. We didn't really hear that much about Indiana last year until the end, but they got more transfers coming in that were playing in a system that weren't getting paid to play in that system like some of these other schools have. So it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, Texas spending some crazy money, and I think Texas Tech is probably one of the main reasons why some of those other schools you mentioned in Texas have to start spending. Because if Texas Tech is outspending some of your schools, then I think you have an issue.
Let me ask you and see if you'll take a flyer on this team. Lincoln Riley has been very vocal of it, and very odd. Says, "Hey, this is our window. We've been looking for a window." And I'm thinking, when you were hired, that was the window.
Yeah, that was the window.
That was the window. But I mean, he really likes his quarterback in Jaden Mavia. They feel like they've got a defensive coordinator that can coach. Can they be kind of a I don't want to say dark horse, but can they be that next team in the Big Ten and maybe make a push here this year?
Ooh. I think they can. I think they're recruiting differently now that they're in the Big Ten. That you can't really recruit like you used to when you were just in the Pac-12. Well, there's a Pac-12 now, but the old days of Pac-12.
Yeah,
I think now with like Oregon and USC and other schools, they're looking like, okay, we're gonna have to run the ball more. We're gonna need to beef up our both lines, offensive and defensive line, because that's what Big Ten is. They have big guys. Look at the winning seasons that Wisconsin had. Their defensive line and O-line were just massive. That's because that's Big Ten football. So I think we're going to see a difference in Oregon and USC on that side of the ball, especially USC. Oregon, doesn't matter if you have that much speed. It doesn't really matter on how you run your system. But I think USC is probably going to be one of those teams that it can maybe surprise some people, maybe surprise some people in the Big Ten.
We don't talk a lot about, or we haven't, at least I haven't, Miami and what they did last year. And Mario Cristobal, I mean, again, they worked the transfer portal hard there. And Mensah comes over from Duke. I've said this before. I think, Tony, the wide receiver at Miami, could be the best player in college football just because you can move him around so much. And, you put him in the slot. You can move him outside. You can put him in the backfield. They have a really good football team.
Yeah, and I feel bad for the state of Florida who are Gator fans, because I think Miami's going to be the talk of the state of Florida in college football for a couple of years. I'm not saying Florida is going to continue to spiral downward. I really like the head coach they got from Tulane. Tulane, the best football team in the state of Louisiana. I do think that's going to be an improvement for them, but I still think right now the way Miami is recruiting, spending, and Cristobal as the head coach, they're going to be around for a long time. And well, who's really in the ACC? Maybe SMU if they continue, but I don't trust Clemson. I don't trust North Carolina, all these other schools. Va Tech, I think they're going to be much improved from last year, but it's still going to come out of the U.
Couple more questions. Well, I'll tell you what, one more college question. I want to ask you a couple NFL questions when I got you here. I know I just told you 10 to 15 minutes, so I'm not going to keep you all night here on the patio. But is there a team we haven't talked about that we need to be talking about? Maybe a flyer for the national championship, or is there? Everybody's asking who's the next Indiana. I don't know that there is a next Indiana. I will be interested to see like an Oklahoma State who brought
I think
over.
SMU you mentioned.
Yeah.
I think they can be in Indiana. We just said the money that they're spending, how they played last year. A lot of returning starters coming from both sides of the ball. I'm not saying they're going to be Indiana, but someone we might be talking about week 6 and 7. Like, wow, this SMU team is really good, really improved. So that's something. I'm not saying they're going to win the national championship, but if you're looking for something that's going to be maybe the next Indiana, this SMU team could be it.
All right, is it the Rams and everybody else in the NFL?
Yeah. If it was their offense being so stacked, not the defense, then I'd be like, yes. But if anything happens to Stafford in that back, I mean, let's face it. I mean, I think the only one that has maybe a worse back than him is myself. If he stays healthy, then I think yes, it's gonna be a hard team to beat. But I think they are beatable. They're not like the Dodgers or stuff like that. They're just one-sided. I mean, Dodgers have pitching and hitting and people on the bench that could probably make the All-Star team in any other team. But right now, it's just defensive heavy. So that means you're going to rely on the health of Matthew Stafford. And he's had bad back for 3 seasons now.
And in the AFC, obviously, it was the Patriots last year. I'm sure there's a lot of money coming in from New England fans. But who are we playing? Where's the money coming in the AFC early?
Denver's getting a lot of money. I'm actually kind of shocked in how bettors are disrespecting New England. I mean, their total season wins, everyone's betting the under. So I'm a little bit shocked. Money's definitely coming in on anything Kansas City under and stuff like that. They really haven't improved their team. I mean, they didn't really get a big key, and I'm shocked to see what their defense is going to be. And if Patrick Mahomes is not the same Patrick Mahomes coming back from that knee injury, I think they take a small step skyward. I think could be Bo Nix's year. I really like. And I'm going to say this, and you know this name because you guys cover the Saints. Keep an eye out for Taysom Hill to sign with the Denver Broncos. Maybe not now, maybe like week 3 or 4 where he can come in towards the end of the season and stuff like that. I think they call him the Swiss Army knife here in New Orleans. It would not shock me if he goes over there.
Hey, we want people to play with you. Tell everybody, get in. We want them to play win totals. You got a bunch of stuff to play at MyBookie.
Yeah, we got a bunch of stuff on there. People always forget that I was the head odds maker over at MyBookie during the COVID years and stuff. I do a lot of consulting work still with them. I do a lot of lines and betting stuff still with them. So yeah, it's a great time because last time I checked, the NFL preseason kicked off today. So there's NFL all weekend long, except on Monday. I'm actually shocked that there's no NFL preseason week 1 Monday Night Football type of game. I was actually kind of shocked, but we got baseball. CFL this week, CFL week 11, I think it is right now. Then we got UFC 330. Mackenzie Dern is the co-fighter, so I always enjoy watching her fight. So it's just a big weekend.
Rafael Esparza, get him on all the social channels and, of course, MyBookie. Esparza, always appreciate you. Hey, 2 times in one day, that's a good deal.
I know, it's a record. I'm going to call your producer right now. He better be watching.
Do that. All right, talk to you next week.
Take it easy.
Rafael Esparza on your stream tonight as we move along, and we appreciate him tonight. Appreciate Dave Myrick tonight. Make sure to get in on MyBookie. Use the promo code PATIO. That's going to do it for tonight. Reminder, follow me on X at Jake Wim. Of course, subscribe on YouTube. We appreciate you guys tonight. Remember, ketchup is king. Bacon's a delicacy. Aloha means goodbye. When we meet next week, we'll grab a couple shows next week. Likely going to be a Tuesday, Thursday next week. And then, of course, the following weeks, I'll have Heinz football and Brandon Bulldog football Thursdays and Fridays. So we'll make sure to get in on probably Saturdays. It won't be Saturdays. We'll be doing football. Maybe, I'm trying to think. The NFL schedule Mondays. It'll be an early week show. We'll get 2 a week. 2 a week. Let's do 2 a week. Have a great Thursday night. We're headed to the week.